Yo, welcome into the House of L podcast. I'm Laurence Holmes. Thanks so much for hanging out. It is appreciated. We are on YouTube. If you have not checked out the House of L YouTube page, you need to do that. We would love it if you would become a subscriber. Man, I'm now inside of this world of YouTube and all of the different landmarks you have to hit for it to be profitable outside of, like if you're actually working on something. For example, during football season, our coverage is going to be brought to you by Remy Martin. That's something that I did outside of what the algorithm says the podcast is popular. So it's just interesting, like learning all of it. So thanks to everyone who is subscribed to the YouTube page, and thank you very much for the time spent watching. If you just want to just hit play on like all the videos and just leave it going for a while, that'll help us get to the hours that we need to become profitable, at least on YouTube. So there's been a lot that's been going on over the last couple of weeks, and I am in a place to talk about some of it. Some of it I still, as of this recording, I don't know what happens next yet. There are all sorts of different scenarios that could happen, but I am unaware of any decisions that have been made, or other than like what could impact me. And I'll talk about that as carefully as I can. And I do want to talk about it as it pertains to like radio overall. First, before we do that, I want to officially congratulate publicly, I guess. So not even officially, because I congratulated Danny on the air. Congratulate Danny Parkins for his new job at FS1. I think that it's perfect for him. I think that it's exactly kind of what he's been setting up to do. And I think that he'll do great. He's with his guy, Nick Wright. And if you're going to go to a new medium and go to a new place, having someone who has already had tremendous success there is helpful in that regard. And I think that he's going to do well. It's a lot. Talking with Danny about it over the last few weeks, is all of this has started to get ready. He's being asked to do a lot. And I don't even mean on the show. It's just difficult when he's moving. Like, this is a guy with 2 young kids and a wife and a mom that he takes care of, and asking everyone to kind of pick up and move is a really difficult thing to do. So I wish him a lot of luck. I think this is what he's wanted, though. If you listen to me talk to Danny, I've made mention of how I hope that what he does is enjoys the view for a little while, and that's hard. Like, it's hard for me. I mean, I'm giving myself advice as I'm giving him advice, because I struggle with that. I struggle with the concept of being where your feet are sometimes, and I know that he does too, because we're probably more similar than we are different. And yeah, Danny and I had a lot of differences when he started, and we worked through them. Some of it was on the air, a lot of it was off the air, but I've always really respected his talent. I think he's a really good talk show host, and I think he'll do well in this format. And I hope that it goes well for him. I hope that he gets to enjoy it, because that's the thing. Like, a bunch of us that do this job, you have these. I'll give you an example. And I know I've talked about this before on other episodes of the podcast. The White Sox play-by-play job is like my dream job, or that's past tense, was my dream job. And it's funny when you get close to some of those things. And I got close. I didn't get it, but I got close a few years ago to it. And then you realize, like, man, I'm kind of glad I didn't that thing that you dream about isn't always what what it is in your mind. And where do you need to be? Like, what's the next thing that you need to do? I'm thinking about that constantly. Like, I know that I'm in a space right now where my creative side is trying to be fed, and that's being creative by putting the pod up on YouTube, for example. Or I'm so happy. Like, I had a buddy of mine, shout out to my guy Elliot Serrano, the king of geeks in Chicago, and I told him that I had been working on this concept for a comic book, and I really wanted him to read it. And he read it, and he gave me some notes, and the fact that he thinks that it can be something is kind of fueling me to pursue it more and continue to write. You know, I'm in the middle of, I haven't really told anyone about this. Like, my bosses at the Score know about this, but I have a pilot that I shot, and I'm not going to say with whom, but I will say that it's locally. I have a pilot that I've been working on for, I think, 2.5 years. And we're getting close to like the final stages of whether it's going to be approved or not. And that's really stressful. But if it gets approved, I'm really excited about what it might be. And from a creative standpoint, it's extremely challenging. And it's very different. And what's funny is that I had initially pitched the idea as an idea. Like, I just wanted to produce it. But they were like, well, why don't you host it? And I was like, oh, yeah, I could probably do that too. So we'll see. I know that people kind of took the pod where I was talking about starting over in TV, and like I'm not out on, like, down on my luck. Like, I've done very well, and I try to save money like a miser for the most part. Like, I live like way below my means. So no matter what happens in the future, I feel like I'm pretty straight with opportunities, cash flow, money, like all of that stuff. But it is like, when this thing ends with me at NBC Sports Chicago in a couple of weeks, it's going to be really sad. And I'll talk about it, because while this is the podcast, it's also a little bit like therapy for me, where I get to walk through some stuff that's going on. But to get back to the whole point of this, like, sometimes you think that the places that you are trying to get to, like, that's the end game. And sometimes it's not what you think. And then you have to go, oh, okay, I kind of thought it was this, but it's kind of this. And I don't know. I saw a job description a few weeks ago that I really like. And I think when I either soft retire or retire, and I'm teaching more full time, I can pursue it more. I was like, yo, this is a job. I'm not going to give away what the job is, because I don't want y'all to get it. I want to be the only one in the room that has a chance to get it. But with Danny's departure to FS1, it leaves a gap. Like, we got to figure out what to do as a station and what's the best thing. And I know that there have been all sorts of things floated out there, things that I've seen written. There's, and you know, if I were thinking about it as a program director, I would go, okay, well, is the person that's going to replace Danny on the roster? Or do I need to go outside the roster to go put someone with Speaks? Do I split Bernstein and Holmes apart? Do I take Bernstein and Holmes and put it in the afternoon, and then whatever the new show is goes in the middays? There's all sorts of different things that could happen that I'm sure Mitch and Ryan are working through. And someone said, you know, what about you guys going to the afternoons. And that's what I specifically want to talk about on this episode. When I got into radio, the idea of the morning drive guy and the afternoon drive team, that was a big deal. And usually it meant that those were the people that were making the most money at your radio station. And to help try and whiteboard this and define it, imagine drive time as 6 to 10 a.m. Some stations have it differently. Some people think it's 5 to 9. Some people have it 6 to 10. And then afternoon drive, I'm using air quotes for those who can't see me, is 2 to 6, 2 to 6:30. Some people think it's 3 to 7. And the idea is, for radio at least, your most captive audience is the audience that's in the car. The drive times where you're driving to work. We know that a lot of people spend time with us in their car on their commute. So you want to try to be as entertaining as possible. And you want to usually put your best shows in those spaces because that's where the listenership is. At least it's how it used to be. I have some numbers to back this up, but I think over the last 10 years, the concept of drive time is different. And that's because people can listen to what we do wherever. Like, they don't have to stop. Like, think about it. Like, back in the day, you kind of had to stop listening to whatever it is you were listening to because you were going to work and having the talk show on in the background on your transistor radio. If you had too many people doing that in an office, and this person's listening to The Score, and this person's listening to GCI, this person's listening to V103, and this person's listening to Rush Limbaugh, it makes it a little bit more like, is everyone going to be able to get their work done and all that stuff? Now that we're streaming, now that people can listen with their headphones in, now that people are at home working and they can make their workspace whatever it is without disturbing anybody. Now that people can take us with them wherever they go with the Odyssey app. To me, it's a different thing. Like, it's still broken down when we talk about this type of stuff. Like, Dan and I are the midday show. Dan, Layla, and I are middays on The Score. And when you start seeing like rankings or whatever from like Barrett's or whomever, that's the category that we're judged in. Like, we're the third most popular midday show in the country or whatever. But now, if you look at the listenership, like the total listenership of The Score, there really isn't that big a difference of cumulative audience, or cum, as we talk about in the business, from Mully and Haw, Bernstein and Holmes to Parkins and Spiegel. There is still some prestige. And there are still, programmers that remember, you got to have Bob Surratt on and drive time, because that sort of thing. There's still some of that, but the numbers are pretty similar. And our show, since we started, has performed really, really well. And who knows if we end up moving, if that changes. I don't think so, but there's different competition in different areas of the day. I think Watto and Sylvie do an incredible show. I would very much love to compete with them, but I don't even know if that's even a thing anymore, because 1000 isn't in the Nielsen's anymore. So I wouldn't even have grounds to compare. And I guess the only way that we could judge it is we could look at like Parkins and Spiegel's numbers, and if we were to go over there, and then after the fall book comes in year to year, like we're way below where they were, then we would have like an idea of, oh wait, that didn't work. And again, I don't No one has said anything to me about what the direction is. I'll be honest with you because I try to be honest with the audience. I have been asked about a lot of different scenarios because, like Dan, Dan has been here 3 decades. I've been here close to 3 decades. And if we were to move as a show, or if we were to be split up as a show, they don't do something like that without asking, not permission, because they're the ones in charge, but they do want to take your temperature. If there's someone that you have beef with, like if they were like, Laurence, we want you to do a show with, I don't know, let's pick a wrestler, Jake the Snake Roberts, and I had beef with Jake the Snake Roberts, then they wouldn't do that unless they thought it was going to be great. And some of those things it can be cool for a little while, and then I think it ends up being a nightmare. And then I get DDT'd, and Damien comes out of the bag, and I'm just laying there. And so they usually will talk to you and say, this is what we're thinking. If this, how would you feel about this? And how would you feel about that? So we can give our opinions, but ultimately, Mitch Rosen and Ryan Porthel make a decision on what to do. But when it comes to, let's put it this way, I don't drive time, like that concept to me isn't what I'm trying to achieve. Like my career, if I spent the next 5 years of my career in middays, I won't feel like, man, you didn't make it to drive time, because of how the window's changing. Now, there was a significant difference for me moving to nights to middays. And that's because after 6:30, really after 7, 6 o'clock is still technically prime time. Like that's still drive time. After 7 o'clock, the audience for any sports station goes down unless there's a game on. So like we carry Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football and the Bulls, DePaul, like those live sports still generates audience. Our show, when I was on at night, generated a really good audience, but cumulative audience is not as big. So I'm throwing numbers out here just so you can kind of understand. If Dan and I have a cumulative audience of 200,000 people in middays, and Danny and Speaks have a cumulative audience of, let's call it 225,000 people in afternoons, and Mully and Haw have 250,000 in morning drive. Nighttime, that gets slashed. So my cumulative audience would be, let's call it 75,000 people that are tuning in throughout the show. So there's a big difference, and there's a difference in compensation usually. Like I got a raise to go to middays, like a major raise. And the thing is that I actually was doing all right at night, like from a money standpoint, because there were the show was good. I was hitting bonuses. They were happy. Tenure, like all of that stuff made for a nice living. But there was a decent bump up when I got to middays. I don't even know if that'll happen in afternoons. I think it might, but just know that it's not. At this point, I kind of see the time slots as similar, but not the same. And I think that because of how the industry has changed, that there's that thing, it doesn't drive me, no pun intended, to, man, I have to be the afternoon show host, or I have to be the morning show host. Like that, as long as I'm on when the sun is up. And I have to tell you, there is a part of me that romanticizes like being on at night. because the lack of oversight at night is great. And we had all sorts of fun, and my schedule was kind of funky, and it kept me on my toes. But yeah, there is something to enjoy about that, but it's not something that drives me, like that title. There are things that in my career that I want. There is an infinity gauntlet of awards that I've got one of them, and I'm hoping that I get another chance for the other one coming up this fall. And then the station got nominated for a Marconi. That would be dope. That would definitely be in the gauntlet for me if we were to win a Marconi, because that's nationwide. Like, we're nominated as the best sports station in the country. And to be a significant part of that feels like I could add that to my gauntlet. But no decisions have been made. At least at the time that I am sitting here and recording this, no decisions have been made. And I have not been asked to do anything. And that might end up being what it is too. Like, I might wake up and Mitch is like, we have a whole new show in the afternoon. Spiegel and whoever. You and Dan are staying put. Layla's still on the show. All that good stuff. And it might not have any, like, there might not be anything that they even need to talk to us about, just other than, here's your new teammate. Have fun. Enjoy transition. So that's what's up, at least from my point of view. I don't know if you wanted to know it, but I wanted to give it to you anyway. Cool? Cool. It's probably went a little longer than I wanted. But we gotta get these hours up on YouTube. Jeez. Who knew these benchmarks were so benchmarky? Anyway, I will see you next time. Thanks so much for listening, whether you're listening on YouTube or the traditional way of listening on Apple or Spotify. Thank you. Wherever it is, write a nice note, send a review. 5 stars, baby. 5 stars. Like book. How many wrestling references can I make in one podcast? Who knows? But we'll keep trying. I'll talk to you next time. Slap nuts. Peace.